Welcome everyone to Joseph's first fireside chat. I'm really excited today to be joined by Jonathan Crook, uh, formerly of Blue Pencil Box, a very exciting legal tech startup in the States where we're both based. And now a partner at Fisher Phillips, which is an extraordinary employment and labor firm that is making strides in the legal innovation and tech space. Jonathan, we've been working together for years, so we're also friends. It's really great for you to be here. Thanks for joining me. So, first up, for anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. So I've been practicing in employment law, specifically in non-competes and restrictive covenants, for about 10 years. And so a few years ago, I was working at a large national labor and employment firm and focusing on this area. And I realized that attorneys had a real need for a resource that kept up to date with this area of law as it changed, because it's been changing constantly over the past few years. And that was the genesis of Blue Pencil Box, the company that I started, which was basically providing a knowledge management platform that stayed up to date daily as new cases were coming out, as bills were being passed, as regulatory agencies started to express interest in this area. And what I wanted to do was combine a very high quality, very trusted source of information with automation, right? Which would allow the user to quickly and easily pull the information that they needed based on the parameters they selected, rather than having to pour through a tome in the law library, right? Like in the old days.
Amazing. I think that makes a lot of sense as a play in the legal tech space. Someone I was speaking to recently in New York was saying there are two plays in legal tech, or two ways you make it successful. One is you have access to the data. The other is you have access to the workflows, or you're able to build the workflows. And it sounds like you combined those two very successfully.
Totally, yeah. Thank you. It was an extraordinarily fun process, and it's something that we're still doing, right? So Fisher Phillips acquired Blue Pencil Box. We're now part of FP Solutions, which is a subsidiary of Fisher Phillips that sort of specializes in these sort of ancillary services, the legal tech space. And yeah, I think that there's a real use case and a real need for attorneys to be able to automate the rote aspects of their practice, right? The process of gathering information, as opposed to finding cases that apply to your client's specific fact pattern, right? That's something different. But any attorney who's practicing, particularly in an area where there's patchwork of state regulations, for example, you have to be able to get that information quickly and efficiently, rather than pouring through a massive spreadsheet or pouring through books. So to the extent that you can automate the process of getting that information, that frees up your time to do the next step, which is to talk through with the client what the law is. Okay, here's what the law is in the 17 states where you have employees. Now what do we do with that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the practice of law. That's what you're not automating. But you are automating just the simple exercise of pulling the information of what the law is.
Yeah, interesting. So we're automating the what is the law question so that we can focus on what to do with that information, which is what our clients
That's
actually
right.
care about, right?
For sure. But you have to make sure that the process that you're automating is the collection of accurate, up-to-date information. That's the key. Because if you're automating the collection of information that's stale, that's not very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have both. You have to have a repository of high quality, up-to-date information and the automation piece, so that what you're doing is quickly getting information that you can trust, that you can know that you can go and speak to the client about, because you know that it's up to date.
Yeah, fascinating. I was speaking to a GC the other day at a health tech company, and they were saying they were sort of looking at a tool like Blue Pencil Box's tool, in a different space, I think in like the health regulation space, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it did 50 state surveys on a bunch of health reg questions.
Sure.
And this GC said, if this tool just did this once a year, I would make my money back because of how much it costs to get a 50-state survey from a big law firm, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It is not easy to build out an accurate 50-state survey in any area of law, right? It's especially not easy to maintain it, right? But once you have those processes in place and you have an up-to-date source of information, and then you layer the automation on top of that, I think then you have something that's really valuable because you're able to go to a source that you can trust and quickly get information without sacrificing in either area, right? Without sacrificing the time of information gathering or without sacrificing the risks that you're getting something that may not be up to date.
Mm. And what, I mean, that benefit is really clear for me from the client side, right? But from your side, you've now been involved in automation projects, both in sort of a smaller law firm or legal organization and in a big law firm.
Okay.
Like, what are the drivers there for you, and what are the drivers for other lawyers, do you think, to roll out these kinds of tools?
Sure. Um, so it's been a fascinating experience now going from Blue Pencil Box to Fisher Phillips, where,
Mhm.
in addition to keeping Blue Pencil Box up to date and running, I'm now practicing law again. And so I'm now a user of Blue Pencil Box in a very real sense, because when I have clients who come to me with these contract projects, I use Blue Pencil Box. Um, and the reason I do that is because of all the things that we just discussed. But on the practice of law side for attorneys, the the thing that they care the most about is providing accurate, up-to-date information to clients. That is an absolute must, right? Based on the duties that we have to our clients. And if you can quickly get information that you can verify, that you can trust, right? That's the key. The whole thing here is, for the lawyer's perspective, eliminating risk and ensuring that you're giving good advice to your clients. Because it's really intimidating if you have a client who says, "Hey, I need this type of contract and it needs to be compliant with in these 34 states." And you start thinking to yourself, "Oh gosh, that's a lot." And the laws can conflict. Um, some of them aren't neatly laid out in a statute, right? There are some states that have their requirements sort of as an instruction manual in a statute. There are a lot of states that are common law states where the only way to really understand what the law is to read case after case after case and figure out the sort of judge created rules for this area. And so again, the benefit for a lawyer of having something like this is to eliminate the time it takes to get that information, but also have something that you can trust is up to date. Because again, this stuff is constantly changing.
Mm. And then as well, and this is something that you did at Blue Pencil Box. I'm not sure to what extent this is carrying over to your work at Fisher Phillips, but the other piece, right, that I'm seeing, and not just at Blue Pencil Box, but elsewhere, is the ability to scale that expertise. Because yes, that helps you internally, and yes, it helps your clients, but also you're you're the expert in this case on, non-compete clauses or employment and labor law. You can make sure the tool is up to date, but then you can surface that to many different people at
Blue
once.
Pencil Box provides information. That is distinct from what lawyers provide, which is legal advice, but they're both valuable. There's a real value in having a platform that allows the lawyer and the client to get up to speed about what the law requires. And then that leads to the next conversation, which is the legal advice. Okay, we understand that non-competes are not permissible in California and they're not permissible in these other states. And we understand that they are permissible within these parameters in these 5 states. But then how do you structure a contract to deal with all of these different nuances? That's the value that the lawyer provides. And you can't automate that. But what you can do is automate the process of figuring out what the law is, particularly in situations where it's not really subject to debate, right? There's a statute that says X, Y, and Z. Now, I don't want to pretend that there isn't some legal analysis that has to go into the interpretation of these statutes, right? There's always going to be that aspect of it. But again, the process of identifying what statutes apply, the process of identifying which states have which rules, That is certainly something that can and should be automated, because you have to be efficient on that stuff, because clients expect it. And clients don't want to pay by the hour to have their lawyer spend hours and hours going to look up what the law is, particularly in an area that they practice in regularly.
Absolutely. And I think I mean, I love that distinction between the information and the advice, right? And that comes up a lot in the world of legal technology, but I think it also plays really well when we're looking at what is the value of a lawyer.
Absolutely.
That said, though, I think there will be a few lawyers listening, maybe, who are thinking we're giving legal analysis short shrift. So I liked what you said at the end there about the fact that it's not easy and there's definitely gray area and there's definitely work to be done.
Absolutely.
But that work is kind of the baseline, right? If you're an employment and labor lawyer in the States, and particularly if you have an expertise in non-competes, your clients don't want to be coming to you and asking you questions and thinking that you have to go and figure out what the law is in relation to non-competes.
Right.
They want you to come with a level of expertise, and these tools give you that level of expertise with confidence and speed and accuracy.
Yeah, they can definitely help. Yeah. And again, I don't want to undersell the lawyer's role in interpreting statutes and interpreting case law for their clients, right? But there are absolutely tools that are out there, and we built one in Blue Pencil Box, and there are lots of them in other areas of law that make the process of staying on top of all of these different changes around the country so much easier for the practicing lawyer. Because if every lawyer who practiced in this area was spending 2 or 3 hours a day looking at all the cases that come out, looking at all the legislative developments, it just wouldn't work, right? So again, it's about creating an informational tool that can make you more efficient and more accurate as a lawyer, right? That's what all of this is about: creating tools that make lawyers better at their jobs, and freeing them up to apply their mental faculties and their energy toward the strategic discussions with their clients, as opposed to just having to go and figure out every time, all right, I'm in North Carolina, what are the rules for customer non-solicitation provisions in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Starting from scratch.
I think that's a really beautiful way of putting it, Jonathan. It's almost like you're creating like a buddy or a co-pilot or a junior to help you do that work. And you're downloading your expertise, your experience, your complex legal analysis into that buddy to go forward with you and help you. I think it's a cool way of looking at tech. Let's move into like the world of the complex regulatory landscape here in the US, which I think is something that I know it's something you deal with in the area of employment and labor, but it's something that a lot of Josef's customers and your clients are dealing with, no doubt, at Fisher Phillips. How can tech, legal tech specifically, how can it help us deal with that increasingly complex landscape?
Sure. I think it ties in a lot to what we've been saying, but basically the idea is, in the United States, there are lots of areas that are governed by state law. A lot of them are in employment law, certainly in non-competes and restrictive covenants. When you have this massive patchwork of regulations that can be different, conflicting, it's extremely difficult for companies, particularly larger employers with employees, perhaps in all 50 states, to figure out how to act and stay compliant with all of these different state level regulations and local level regulations, right? I view technology as the tool that enables those organizations and their lawyers to deal with this stuff efficiently. That's what technology does better than human beings, is sort through massive amounts of data quickly, right? And so really, when you're talking about this patchwork of laws, you're talking about a lot of data points across 50 states and cities and counties and townships, what have you, right? Human beings are not better than technology at sorting through a big spreadsheet that's got states and legal issues right across them. Human beings need to fill that in with accurate information about what the law is, right? But the process of pulling that into a usable report or a checklist, that's absolutely something that can and should be tech enabled, right? That's where the automation comes in.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's spot on. And I think as well, I know the tools that you've built on Joseph's no code platform use conditional logic some more traditional forms of automation, like an expert system. But I think similar observations apply in the world of Gen AI, right? And so this is one of the big focuses of our new Gen AI tool, Josef Q. And we've been working with a lot of law firms and a lot of in-house teams on exactly that question, taking large regulatory data sets, ingesting it, and spitting out an output that is helping them stay compliant in various forms.
Absolutely. Yeah. It is very difficult to ensure, if you're a company that is subject to 50 different laws on a single issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a particular contract, it's really hard to stay on top of all that stuff, particularly when they're changing all the time. New bills are being passed every year, at least in the space that I operate in. There are new theories of regulation that are coming out from the federal regulatory agencies. Combining both the sort of breadth of the laws that apply and the fact that they're constantly changing just makes it really difficult. So you have to lean on technology to automate the things that can and should be automated so that you can spend your time on the substantive stuff rather than rote information gathering.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just in the employment space, I promise you. Like we had in the States last year, there were 6 new privacy regimes alone, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
speaking to Privacy Council, they're all just terrified of how they're going to get across that, let alone then go and do all the work that follows, which is update privacy policies and make sure all of their contracts take that into account.
Oh yeah, we have a team at Fisher Phillips that's tracking all of that stuff, and it's quite similar to the non-competes and restrictive covenants, right?
Okay.
It's a constant process of monitoring, but then keeping our tools up to date, right? Which is what they're doing.
You made the move from Big Law to Blue Pencil Box, which was a startup, right? It was like a legal tech startup. And you were, recognized for all of that work you've done a number of times externally, and subsequently acquired by Fisher Phillips FP Solutions, which is really exciting. A more personal question.
Sure.
And we talked about this at the time, what drove you to make that leap from Big Law into starting your own legal tech solution?
That's a great question. I think at the end of the day, what it came down to was I felt that I had an idea that could help people solve a problem that I felt, right? I set out in Blue Pencil Box to solve a problem that I was experiencing in my role as an attorney. And so it wasn't like I was asking for a loan to start a restaurant or something, right? I was quite confident that the problem existed because I had felt it. And in terms of taking the leap, it came down to, I can't remember who told me this. I think it might have been one of my friends or family members, but they basically said, what's the worst that could happen?
It's a scary question to ask.
It is, but truly, in my situation, the worst that could happen was I would leave the firm, I would start Blue Pencil Box. It would be terrible. No one would buy it. Everyone would hate it and say, why did you do this? This is dumb.
Yeah.
And then I could go back to being a lawyer. Right. And these types of things, depending on what your business model is and depending on what the thing you're building is, it can be done. Blue Pencil Box was totally bootstrapped. We invested in the right tools, but we were very lean. It's a space where if you have a clear vision of the problem that you're solving and you have tools like Josef that can help you solve that problem, I think there's so many ways that you can deploy the substantive expertise of a lawyer with legal tech to create all sorts of new and interesting companies. And so that was sort of my personal calculus, which was, I think I've got a problem that needs to be solved. I think I know how to solve it. I think I can do it without putting myself or my family at an unreasonable level of risk. So why not?
What's the worst that can happen? And look at you now. So now we should talk about Fisher Phillips, right?
Yeah.
A really exciting firm. Actually was invited by them last year to an AI conference that they hosted in DC. Where they had like Ted Lieu along from Congress, who headed up the AI committee, It was an extraordinary event, and I've been following Evan Shankman and the team's efforts since then very closely. What are you excited about in the Fisher Phillips realm? What's next?
Oh man, so many things. Yeah, so before Fisher Phillips acquired Blue Pencil Box, they were a customer of mine. So I got to know
Mm.
Bob Yanowitz and Michael Elkon, who were the leaders of the employee defections and trade secrets team. I got to meet Evan and some of the other folks on his team, and I always admired what Fisher Phillips was doing sort of from afar because I know that they were one of the first firms to get involved, maybe even the first firm to help with co-counsel, right? Which is
Hmm.
now, recently acquired by Thomson Reuters, and I knew that they were investing in the cutting edge of legal tech, and they still are, and we still are, and I think the firm has a fantastic culture and vision around leveraging technology to let the attorneys be fantastic attorneys, right? Using the technology to just make us better at what we do. That again, that's what it's all about. And so I'm in a really cool and unique position where on the practice of law side, I'm able to work with clients on these types of contracts that I'm focusing on and helping out in the cases that they have. But I'm also working with the FP Solutions team and keeping Blue Pencil Box going and growing that and working on these sort of ancillary products and services that can be really helpful to both our clients and to other law firms. So it's just a really cool opportunity for me, and I'm extremely grateful that everything worked out the way it did.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's incredibly exciting firm. And when I saw the news that you had been acquired by them, I was doubly excited. So that's great.
Well, thank
Congratulations.
you. Yeah, I appreciate it, Sam.
I have to ask this question because you are a Joseph user.
That's right.
What drew you to the Joseph platform in the first place?
The thing that drew me to Joseph was that being an attorney and being not trained in computer programming, I was astonished to learn through Joseph that I could actually create things. I could program things. I could create chatbots or automation tools without knowing a lick of coding. And that kind of blew my mind. It kind of unlocked all these ideas. It ultimately, unlocked the idea of Blue Pencil Box. But the thing I love about Joseph is that it provides such a seamless and easy to use platform, both on the back end and the front end, right? The process of building the bots on Joseph just made sense to me. It's just the way you have
Yeah.
it laid out is intuitive. It's all based on logic, which attorneys are great at. And so any attorney who's great at figuring out a logical legal problem can build something in Joseph. And then on the front end, it's this is a term that I picked up from my fellow entrepreneur and legal tech people, but it's delightful. Lawyers don't usually use that word
No,
in the
that.
stuff that we're doing, but the startup space use that word a lot. But it is delightful, and by delightful, I just mean it's easy to use, it's intuitive, and it solves the user's problem quickly and painlessly. And that's what it's all about. You have a really lovely platform that users can click through without needing training. Anyone can look at the things that I've built on Joseph and figure out how it works and how to get information. It's not like training them on some sort of software that they've never used before. And I think that's an absolute positive, and it's been incredible.
Cool. Thank you for the kind words. That's
Of
great.
course.
And I think I remember when we first started working together and watching you pick it up and watching it click. Um, and yes, like it is accessible for everyone, but I think as well you took to the concept so quickly. And that was very evident from the beginning. So, final question. I know we could chat for hours.
Sure.
But final question is for anyone thinking about starting on their legal automation journey, what's like your number one lesson learned or bit of advice for them?
Mm. I think the thing that I've learned throughout all of this process, and it's probably even more relevant now with the advent of generative AI and all the cool things that's going on in that space. But I think this type of automation, the ability to automate the process of gathering information from lots of different sources and putting it into a single place based on the user input. That's always going to be a part of the practice of law forever. There's always going to be a use case for someone selecting any number of states that they're interested in, selecting any number of legal issues that they're interested in pulling that information and automating the process of doing that. I don't see how that could ever be replicated, or why it would ever go away, because as long as attorneys are practicing law, they're going to need to do this. And if they're going to need to do this, they need to be able to automate it rather than do it manually. And I think we've just scratched the surface of the various use cases for this technology in the practice of law. The practice of law has a long way to go in terms of increasing efficiency through technology. I think we're getting there. But the sky's the limit. I mean, what I would say to anyone who's considering building something like this, just do it. Just do it. I mean, just give it a shot. And I think you'll be surprised by how much better it makes your life, both as a practicing attorney, eliminating annoying tasks and automating that type of thing so that you can focus on what really matters. And also, I just think there's a lot of additional business opportunity out there for people who want to pursue these types of ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just look at you, a guiding light. It's been amazing to be a part of your journey, Jonathan, over the past couple of years. And yeah, I'm really excited for the next chapter as well at this very exciting firm. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course.
And for sharing all of your insights today. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much, Sam. And good luck to you and Joseph. And yeah, best wishes.